everyone and welcome back to my channel. This week's video I am in Guadalajara, Mexico, and this video is part of my series called Empowering Creativity, Conversations with Inspiring Female Artists. I'm going to be chatting with Victoria Villasana today, a textile artist from Guadalajara. Hey, I am Nocciola the Drawer, an artist and adventurer from the UK. Let's get creative. I saw her work in the Museum of Popular Art in Mexico City. She combines photographs with Mexican textiles that has a powerful effect. So let's go and chat to her, hear more about her practice, her inspiration, and get to know Victoria. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Hi, my name is Victoria Villasana and I'm a textile artist from Mexico.
What initially inspired you to become an artist?
Since I was a child, I never forgot the feeling when I was creating, whether it was drawing or painting. I felt really alive, really connected to something. As I grew up, I always remember that feeling. So I knew that I had to do something creative, but for a long time, I didn't know exactly what. I had some sort of idea that maybe a fashion designer, perhaps a painter, but I knew that it had to be something creative. My journey has been experimenting with different things until one day I was working in fashion at the time and I was creating these collages, experimenting with textile and print. That was just a hobby. And one day I saw one guy putting like a paste up on the streets in my road. I really liked it because I always admired street art, but I always thought, no, I could never do that, the big scale. I didn't see myself doing that. So when I saw this guy putting these little pastes, I thought, maybe I could, I've been doing all these kind of portraits with textiles that they are in my desk. So I'm just gonna go and put it on the streets as well. So, why not? So next weekend I did that, and I was living in London at the time. So I just started putting these portraits. People really liked it. People resonated with it. I guess the element of textile, bringing something very feminine into the streets, the color as well. And that's how my journey into art started, basically by putting my first pieces on the street.
Are there particular styles or themes that frequently appear in your work, and what do they represent?
I think with my work, because I tend to work with a lot of portraits, I like to tell a story through a face, which through a face is almost like something that maybe represents about me, but also something that represents the humanity or the human condition. Sometimes I tend to do portraits of people that I admire. I always admire visionaries, people who through history, whether they were activists, musicians, I feel like they break with the status quo. I always admire people who follow their own path. And I like to highlight those people, and also it's people that through music or through their vision or their ideologies, I feel they change the world. Because sometimes we think like by changing the world has to be the job of only politicians. And I feel like to change things is the job of everyone choosing and being authentic to themselves. Know what society tells you that you should be, because that's how we change the world. If you're authentic, is how you are gonna be a better person. You're gonna give your best in what you do. And I also like to highlight stories behind those portraits that can relate to everyone. Sometimes it's pop culture because I feel like we all know these characters, so there is a connection that we can all feel. The story behind it can remind us to something very personal. And for example, at the beginning when I was doing street art, I wanted to bring a little bit of the social causes because I wanted to highlight problematics that sometimes we hear in the news, about a number. It sort of becomes dishumanized because we hear so many stories. I wanted to bring those characters, and with color and yarn, I wanted to bring the humanity of those stories. And there is something about textiles that I think culturally, because there is ancient cultures in many parts of the world using textiles to tell a story. There is something also very personal because all our grandmas or aunties used to do that. So I feel like textile, there is something in our psyche make us feel like we belong somehow. So I think the textile part that I add is related to that, and is related to my culture as well, but many cultures.
How does your local culture and heritage influence your creativity?
Well, I think for me, Mexico has inspired me a lot, but also traveling and seeing different cultures. In sense of Mexico, color is everywhere. My childhood here, I remember the markets, people on the streets, all the craftsmanship of indigenous cultures that I used to see everywhere, the colors. Yeah, I think this is a bright color country, so it has inspired me even unconsciously. Because when I was starting this, I didn't particularly do it in that direction, but I guess I was living in England at the time, and maybe one part of me meets color. So when I was doing these collages, I just immediately add the color and the heavy textile that I guess one part of me absorbed from childhood. But also when I travel around different parts of the world, I saw the celebration of everyday life, or the celebration of rituals or certain ceremonies or certain traditions that they had. All that inspired me. In my point of view, all cultures have really good things and also things that can be improved. But I think if we learn to work together, there is things that we can learn from each other. And I guess that's a metaphor that I like to put in my work. Something that I like to put in my work is the impermanence of things, because I tend to leave the yarn hanging in the street art and also my original pieces. I like to leave this unfinished look as a translation of we humans work in a constant change, and we are constantly evolving, and how we are always a work in progress in a way.
What is your process from picking the portraits to adding the textiles?
Well, I start picking up the portrait based in a story behind that character, whether it's because I personally like what they did, or because I want to say something about one particular historical moment, a message behind that portrait as well. And then after that, my process is very intuitive. So I just pick up the textile, have a little bit of idea of which colors I'm going to use, and then I just go with the flow. It's very much about not judging and not trying to control. Obviously, there is an element of knowing, and after working with this material for so many years, you know what you're doing, so you already know which things don't work, right? So you already feel very familiar with the material. You can just trust the process. And I like to mix geometry patterns, because I see these patterns, this geometry in the everyday world, in plants, in nature, and the color is something that brings everything together in my pieces, and is part of my culture, pretty much my process. Yeah.
What brings you joy in your creative process?
I think being able to get in the zone, when I think all artists know that feeling when you start doing something and you put music and you get into this sort of meditation state, and you feel connected. I don't know to what, but you feel at peace with yourself. You feel connected to life, and that's something that since I was a child, I think that I knew that I wanted to connect with that feeling again and again. Because for me, art is a necessity. Before I was doing this, I always use art even as a way to deal with difficult times. I actually do believe that art is very powerful tool to use to heal ourselves, to heal, because we all feel pain. We all, in different situations. With art, is for me, what I found is a way to transmutate that pain into something positive out of my life, even if it was not connected to the work that I do now. I always use art as an escape, or as a way to deal with things. I will do it whether people pay me or not. It's almost like like food to the soul for me.
Thank you so much to Victoria for letting us know more about her story, inspiration, and about her artwork. I'll leave all the links in the description below to her website and to find out more about her artwork and her exhibitions coming up. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up and let me know in the comments which piece of artwork that you like of Victoria's and you enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you for the next creative adventure. While you're here, don't forget to press subscribe below so you get weekly videos of creative adventures, behind the scenes and artist resources.